Well, I'd like to call on me to introduce our next award winner of the Sidney Hook Award. It's my very pleasant duty to introduce an individual who, as much as anyone I've ever known, deserves the old-fashioned title of citizen. If we hear that word at all these days as a title for someone, it is ironic. Orson Welles' 1941 movie Citizen Kane was not about a man dedicated to public spiritedness, and good citizenship awards usually go to somebody who's saved a dog from drowning or planted geraniums in the public square. Even the word citizen now has a whiff of unfriendliness to our undocumented neighbors. That leaves us with a quandary for how do we describe the man who is neither a politician nor a journalist, who devotes himself to improving our common life. I guess we could call that person a community activist. But that word seems to mean something else. I'm going to stick with citizen, and I'm here to introduce and give an award to Citizen Ward Connerly. Now, Ward is president and founder of the American Civil Rights Institute, ACRI, which is a not-for-profit that aims to educate people about the need to move beyond race. That is, to move beyond race as a legal category and move beyond it as a category generally in our way of perceiving each other, and to put in its place a more robust conception of the individual. ACRI, I believe, plays to the good nature, the goodwill, and the common perception of the overwhelming majority of American citizens. It grew out of a successful campaign in 1995 and 1996, led by Ward, to pass California's Proposition 209, the ballot measure that overturned state-sponsored racial and gender preferences. Proposition 209 essentially took the language of the Federal Civil Rights Act and made it state law as well. Ward subsequently led the efforts to pass similar ballot measures in the states of Washington, Michigan, and this year ending, Nebraska. Ward was born in Leesville, Louisiana in 1839. 1839. He's really old. But here at the National Association of Scholars, we don't make age that much of an issue. After a very long youth in Louisiana, and the death of his mother, he was raised by first his grandmother and then his maternal uncle and aunt. That Uncle James, Jesse, has become the title of Ward's newest book, for sale out in the lobby here, Lessons from My Uncle James, Beyond Skin Color to the Content of Our Character. Uncle James was a man with a third-grade education who, during World War II, I believe worked in the shipyards in Washington State, where Ward spent a few years growing up, and then moved to Sacramento, where more or less Ward has spent the rest of his life. Those lessons that Ward took from his uncle included a kind of just undefeatable spirit to enter into the things that he was going to do and make them work. Well, the life story picks up as this. He went to Sacramento State College and graduated in political science in 1962. While he was an undergraduate student there, he campaigned against housing discrimination. Now, what we do as undergraduate students so often seems to encode in ourselves the things we're going to do for the rest of our lives. So housing, discrimination, state college. Well, after college, Ward went to work for the California Department of Housing and Urban Development. And then he was persuaded, I believe it was by Governor Pete Wilson, to leave the public sector and try his hand at the private sector. So in 1973, he founded a land use planning company, which eventually became the most successful in California, probably the most successful in the country. He prospered financially, and he remained vitally interested in public affairs. He was appointed to the University of California Board of Regents in 1993, and I would have to say probably without an agenda, but within a year he acquired one. He became convinced that the university's affirmative action policies amounted to racial discrimination, and he decided pretty much single-handedly to take on a university system in which racial preferences were profoundly embedded and held with great enthusiasm by fellow trustees and by the college presidents and virtually everyone else with authority. The epiphany that led him to take this momentous stand had long-term consequences for California and the nation. The creation of Proposition 209 wasn't really Ward's idea. Two NAS members, Glenn Custard and Tom Wood, had come up with this idea, but being good academics, they had an idea and they didn't really know what to do with it. No knocks on them at all. It was a great idea, but it took a different kind of brilliance to make it into something that the majority of people in California would find not just palatable, but really the right thing to do. That's where Ward stepped in and made the campaign for Proposition 209. It was more than 10 years ago now, maybe memory fades a little bit. This was one of the transformational moments of our lifetimes. This was the point at which Americans took a long, hard look at racial preferences in the most liberal state in the country, or at least one of the most liberal states, and said, is this really who we want to be? And they said no. And while it's probably not historically accurate to give that victory to any one person, if there was any one person more than any other, the person who gave lift to this idea and made it seem real and credible to all sorts of people in California, that was Ward. The creation of that historic moment has changed the conversation, as we now say in public life, changed it to enough that in ensuing battles, not everyone has been won, but the issue has now become discussable. Is the way to achieve justice for the people whose ancestors suffered under slavery and Jim Crow laws, other forms of discrimination, to erect our own system of active discrimination? And the answer appears to be, more compellingly with each year that passes, no.